But I mean, it's evident they want the offensive line as healthy as possible for this particular game, and they should, because if the Cowboys have a path to beating the Eagles, it's going to be probably with the pass rush. And
like the man says, let's go with 2 hours of Birds 365 right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. You got your boys, the Mac Bros, Jody McDonald and John McMullen, hanging with you for the next 2 hours as we start to edge closer to Sunday Night Football between the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles and the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys. Showdown on Sunday night. Can't get here quickly enough, but we'll help you get prepped for it, ready for it over the next couple of days. Johnny Mac, still more than 3 days away before we actually get to see the Eagles and the Cowboys on the field. But we did see some guys on the practice squad yesterday, or at least it was rumored that we saw them because they put out a tentative injury release walkthrough here in Philadelphia. But this has actually been pretty accurate if you judge by the first 5 weeks. And some pretty good news for Eagle fans because the injured list, although not fully participant, you did see guys back out there on the field for the Eagles.
Yeah, always a good sign. And as you mentioned, they scaled back to a walkthrough, so it was an estimation. But basically, everybody was out there except for Josh Jobe, who showed up with a shoulder injury. Rookie backup corner, been a big part of the special teams coverage. He's the only
is that a
one.
good thing or a bad thing these days?
Yeah. Well, the special teams he's been one of the key guys, but yeah, take that as how you want to. Obviously, it hasn't been a great unit as a whole. And that's pretty good. So, but I mean, it's evident they want the offensive line as healthy as possible for this particular game, and they should, because if the Cowboys have a path to beating the Eagles, it's going to be probably with the pass rush and creating turnovers. And the easiest way to do that is to get Micah Parsons unleashed, but he didn't practice, by the way, although all indications from Dallas are he's going to play in the game, and they're being cautious with him. Unleashing him and DeMarcus Lawrence and creating turnovers. And Trayvon Diggs has been an Eagles killer in his early career. Boy, that guy's got 4 interceptions against the Eagles already. He just got here, and he's got 3 in one game. He had 4 passes defended. In another game, he had 3 passes. He's just killed the Eagles. So that's, but it's interesting, Jody, because if you look at last year, it's done a complete 180. It really has. The Cowboys were the explosive team, and the Eagles had the small margin of error to get to a win. They had to play the right way. They had the game managed. They couldn't turn the football over. And, the first game, Trayvon Diggs took one back, 59 yards. This time, it's the exact opposite. The Eagles are the explosive team, and the Cowboys have to play game manager with Cooper Rush, and they got to figure out how to turn the football over and maybe make a couple splash plays that way. And they have the small path to get to a victory. So it's interesting how quickly things change in the NFL.
And the Cowboys with their own injury report, Dak Prescott did not participate. He was on the field. He threw the football some. He was not considered a participant in practice. And even their head coach had to come out yesterday and said, as of now, they are preparing Cooper Rush to be the starting quarterback here in Philadelphia. Cooper Rush is 4-0. His quarterback ranking is not bad. He's in the top half of the National Football League, not in the top 5 or top 10, but he is in the top half. He has played efficient football. Are the Eagles in a better way because they're going to be facing Cooper Rush? Or are the Cowboys actually more of a chance to win because they've got the quarterback that's going to start?
No, the Cowboys are, I give Cooper Rush all the credit in the world, but no, just what I said. I always talk about good quarterbacks and great quarterbacks, and what they do is they increase the margin of error. And in lesser quarterbacks, you have to play a certain way. And the Cowboys deserve credit because they've been able to scale back and as I said, whatever term you want to use, game manager, they got to take care of the football. They can't make mistakes. They probably got to play from the lead, all these things. And it if you get down 17-0, the game's over, period. End of sentence, and that you could argue it's over anyway with Dak Prescott, but you're more explosive with Dak Prescott. There's more opportunities for slip ups, and you can recover a little bit. With Cooper Rush, man, you got to be on your P's and Q's, and it makes it much more difficult for the Cowboys.
And if you disagree with that, I know Cowboy fans certainly will, because they want to dream the dream, and they want to point to the fact that Cooper Rush is 4-0 and 5-0 in his career. But one of the things that I lean on, right, wrong, or indifferent, and I've been doing so for years, long before the evolution of easy national betting, that most of the states in the union have the ability to take bets and put an app right there on the phone, and you can bet any place, anytime, anywhere. I've been using this going back to when the only places here in the United States you could bet were Vegas, Atlantic City, and at your corner pub that you did back in the corner, exchanging envelopes because you weren't supposed to be doing it out in public. The wagering line. Do you know what this game opened at, John? On Sunday night after the Eagle game and the Cowboys games were over and done with, they put out an opening line on the next week. Some places put it out like days in advance, but they use Sunday night as the demarcation of what the line opens up at. Do you know what the line opened up at?
I get the emails, but no, I don't remember. I don't pay that close attention.
At Philly, Eagles at home, the Eagles were a 1-point favorite. That's it. The Eagles were a point choice. The line opened this week with the Eagles a 1-point favorite.
Well, that's something's wrong with that.
Well, here's what it was. We didn't know if Dak Prescott was going to be able to play.
But even if he was going to play, doesn't that strike you as...
I checked it just before I came on the air. It opened at -1. It has climbed, rightfully so, to the Eagles -6, or in some places -6.5. That's what the line should be. But you never see it. A line moves a point or two, key injury, blah, blah. 5.5 points. It opened at the Eagles -1. So the only thing I can read into that was the possibility that Dak Prescott could play. And as we've gotten to Thursday before a Sunday night kickoff, it's climbed as high as it has, because it's pretty obvious now that it's going to be Cooper Rush. That's where the line should be. I hope some Eagle fans got in at -1 if it was posted at that, and you were able to grab a hold of that, because that's a hell of a line for you to get if you believe the Eagles are going to win the game, which I do. But that's how much at least Vegas thinks of Dak Prescott and the upgraded quarterback if he would have jumped back in instead of Cooper Rush.
Well, that's a crappy line. I got to criticize, and not often. They usually get it right, but I mean, that would be even if Dak Prescott plays. Now it should be lesser. Obviously, it should be less, but 3 points generally is what you get for home field. I would say 4-point favorite, maybe Eagles. Give them an extra point because they're the better team. But then you add in the fact that if he did play, he's coming in with barely any prep. He's coming in with rust, and he's probably not going to be a typical Dak Prescott. Boy, I hope people got in with that number, because that number is awful.
And the other thing that may have played in, this does play into it from time to time, because you get immediate reaction. The Eagles coming in, sneaking away with a victory out of Phoenix, with Matt Amendola missing a very makeable field goal that could have sent the game to overtime.
Yeah.
And the Cowboys with an impressive upset win over the defending champion Rams in a game that really wasn't close in the fourth quarter. Sometimes there's an overreaction to what you've just seen. Remember what you've seen most recently. And then the line adjusts itself thereafter, because people rightfully handicap the entire season. That's the only other thing I can think of as to why the line would have been as obnoxiously as
I mean, there's also, I always joke there's certain teams in football, it's the Cowboys, and they're always just a little bit a little bit more. People think a little bit more of them than they really are. It's the Yankees in baseball. It's the Celtics in basketball when they're good. Um, Notre Dame in football. There's those certain teams that I don't know what you want to call it, but they just have a little bit overblown because of their reputation.
They're a magnet for money, and you are right on, and you named the correct teams. And the Cowboys are probably the most nationally bet team in the entire league. So we're still 4 days away from the game actually being played. We noted that the Eagles had a lot of guys out there in limited fashion yesterday, estimated injury report. But it looks like the offensive line should be all good to go, which is a major key in this game because, John, I'll go on record and say this is the best defense the Eagles have faced so far this year. They are 5-0, and you can't complain with the results, but they will be tested more this week offensively against the Dallas Cowboy defense because this is the best defense they played all year.
Yeah, I agree with that for a couple reasons. One, there's a lot of talent on the defensive side of the ball. I mentioned a couple of them. Starts with Micah Parsons, obviously, but also DeMarcus Lawrence, we know. Although Lane Johnson has kind of owned DeMarcus Lawrence over the years, so that's a positive for the Eagles. Trayvon Diggs, though, has owned the Eagles, as I mentioned. He's only been here for 2 years. This is his third year, but he's got 4 interceptions against the Eagles. He has dominated. And the positive there is Jalen Hurts is taking care of the football. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, Nick Sirianni, I asked him about Diggs yesterday, and he brought up Malik Hooker as well because they had Indianapolis. He's playing really well. Former first round pick who got injured and is starting to play like it. Donovan Wilson, I think, is one of the more underrated safeties in this league. If people don't know him, Dorrance Armstrong's playing well. And then, speaking of former first-round picks, they have Dante Fowler, who, never lived up to the billing. And I'm not going to sit here and say he's a great player. And he just plays pretty much now as a pass rusher. But with him on the field with Parsons and Lawrence, it all of a sudden becomes, instead of a guy who's getting double, he never sees a double team, and he's just in that role. He's been really good. And Dan Quinn, I mean, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in football. It's interesting to me, people talk about the Eagles coordinators and all the interest they're going to be getting, and when Matt Rule got fired, Shane Steichen was number 3. We're talking about betting markets already. And if he continues on, we know Jonathan Gannon already had 3 head coaching interviews. The Cowboys coordinators, Dan Quinn was number 2 in that list to replace Matt Rule. It was Sean Payton, Dan Quinn, Shane Steichen. Kellen Moore, their offensive coordinator, he's one of those guys who people think is going to be a head coach in this league. It's interesting because John Fossil might be the best special teams coordinator in football. A lot of people don't have respect for Mike McCarthy for whatever reason. They probably have the best group of coordinators in the NFL, the Cowboys.
And by the way, Eagle fans, your record against Mike McCarthy. You can have all the opinions you want on Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy couldn't advance with Brett Favre. Mike McCarthy hasn't won a playoff game since he got to Dallas. Yeah, there are a lot of things to point to Mike McCarthy not getting the job done. Here's one thing he's done: is beat the Eagles. When he was with Green Bay, since he's gotten to Dallas, he's got a winning record against Philadelphia. So
he's got a winning record. He's one of those guys. He's got a winning record against everybody. I mean, he's one of those guys who, you're right. I mean, it all comes down to him. And we kind of saw it with Andy Reid in Philadelphia for many years. I mean, everybody in the industry kind of knew, well, Andy's a really good coach, but he got a lot of criticism here because he couldn't get over the hump and win the Super Bowl. And he still gets a lot of criticism because he's only got one, Jody. I was looking it up. I forget, it's 9 or 10 10-win seasons for Mike McCarthy. Now, I say the same thing with Matt LaFleur. All right. A lot of it has to do with the quarterback, but, um, he won 12 games last year before the disappointment in playoffs. And look, they should have won that game. They were the better team. They were the home team. They should have won the football game. They didn't play well. But I don't know. For everybody saying Mike McCarthy's the worst coach, I mean, the guy's got 147 NFL wins. He's got to know something. And the coordinators, as I mentioned, that's part of it. That's part of it. Now, Jerry Jones will spend money for coordinators more than most owners, so he deserves credit as well. But this is a good coaching staff. It really is.
Agreed. And I don't know that the Eagles will win this game purely because they outcoach the Dallas Cowboys. That'll be a tough task. I think it's two evenly matched coaching staffs going mano a mano on Sunday night. All right, J-Mac, you got your Mac guys here on Birds 365. We got two good guests coming your way. First up, we're going to talk to our bud, Scott Grayson, sports anchor on Fox 29 and host of Props and Locks on their Friday night. Get you ready for the upcoming Gridiron weekend. Scotty's been on with us before. He'll join us again coming up next. And then in hour number 2, Mike Missinelli, part of the Eagle pregame show here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. Mikey Miss going to jump in on hour number 2. So we got two good guests coming your way. Your job is to stay right where you're at here on Birds 365.